Boom, and welcome to another episode of Nobody Watching. Over the course of the pandemic, with apparent miles to go, the advisories and government directives to stay put and stay home have been to many a blessing and a curse. On the one side, we get to stay home with all of our stuff. On the other side, we have to stay home with all of our stuff. And as we adjust to the time and the freedom, the longer it goes on, the harder it is to find things to do with ourselves. That is, if you're a doer type. Doer types are always doing or looking for things to do, while non-doer types don't do anything. This is easy for them. Sit, stay, snack, nap, repeat. It never gets old. For the rest of us, as a way to stay connected, many have turned to online resources. And where we used to have things to talk about naturally because everyone was out and about experiencing new things, we find now that with little change in routine outside of the daily news, our viable topics for discussion diminish. I mean, even if you have devised a clever way to keep your whites whiter and your colors brighter, it's not likely to be a topic to build on. It's a one and done, and it's not that interesting to begin with. So more and more people have turned to quizzes and curious prompts to use as conversation starters. Lately, the ones I see seem to reflect what many people are going through with all the extra time, an exploration of self. What advice would you give your younger self? What would your younger self think of who you are today, the music you listen to, the job you have, and so on? If you could go back and change one thing in your life, what would it be? In a normal situation, it would all seem harmless enough, but in this environment, after having already worked through a fair chunk of figuring out what to do with ourselves, even the fun questions seem to carry a little more weight, and your answers will likely mirror the time you have available to ponder them. When you have no time, you give quick, fun answers, easy to do, easy to forget, no sweat. And having time renders a deep analysis reflecting the whole of your existence. I'm not sure anyone needs pandemic-induced introspection for the common questions that plague us to rise up and take our center stage in our headspace on the regular. Once in a while, maybe, but not as the result of a dopey online query. And honestly, what's the point of all the navel-gazing? Case in point, I was going through some stuff working very hard at becoming an incredible failure at embracing minimalism when I came across this memory. And by the way, while I understand the allure of paring down one's life to the things you need over all the things you possess, the ritual of determining retention based on the amount of joy a thing brings you can itself consume your time, energy, goodwill, and yes, joy. What is joy anyway? Is joy the proper factor for this exercise? Are joy and happiness the same thing or different factors for evaluation? Do I only keep things where the joy element is identified? Is joy even the right feeling for what any one thing means to me? And how much joy is the right amount of joy for retention? My joy analysis can get kind of heavy, and I probably should save that for a future program. In the meantime, this is me in one of my formative stages of youth, a young entrepreneur working to build a stable business and acquire adequate funds for my growing dependency on vinyl records. If I use this lad as the target of my analysis, the answers to my questions of life would be much different than if I was talking to this me, or this me, and so on. I learned something from everything I've done and everything I do, even if it's a small thing. This me learned that I didn't want to make a career of toting newspapers around my neighborhood at the crack of dawn, being chased by angry dogs and dealing with people who didn't want to pay me the paltry fee I had to collect for this particular periodical. This me would think I was doing pretty good, all things considered. I haven't been chased by an angry dog in a very long time, and he built my collection of Beatle records, which still have today. So all good here. This me spent a lot of time drawing and writing stories. This me learned how to make movies with a Super 8 film camera. This me got himself his first guitar. And in one way or another, that's all stuff I still do today. Maybe I could be better at some of these things, but it is the task of any number of current me's to build on or disregard the skills of all the previous me's introduced into my existence. And when thinking of my life road and how I got to this point, I wonder which young me should I burden with the weight of my adult reflections. It hardly seems fair to say anything to any of them. A, knowing me, I'm not sure they would listen. And B, what would they care? They don't have the gift or burden of perspective to understand why future me is ranting at them about some misstep they may or may not have made yet, even if it's coming from me. The point is, I am as you are, the culmination of all of our younger selves, warts and all. We've all had good times and bad times, struggles, wins, losses, and everything in between, and still here we are. Farther than some and not as far as others in the grand game, but we were never promised equity or joy. I think the lesson here is that as nice as it might be to imagine visiting yourself in your past to try to make your future a little better, you wouldn't know if it worked or not. You would be stuck in the same place, so why not just focus on finding joy, however you define it, in where you sit today? If thinking about your past reveals anything, it should show you that even today, right now, you are not done. You have life to go. You're just a past me of your future self, and if you're doing the best you can, you're doing great. Save any advice for your current you and try to make future you proud to look back on this noble chapter of your being. It's all they can ask. And we'll see you next time.